days, travel was difficult. The roads were not paved in winter, they turned into mud. And in summer they became clouds of dust. Most families lived from the land, and whatever their hands could produce. Mr. Fotis's family owned a few acres of apple trees, vineyards, quince trees, and peach orchards. They were not wealthy, but they did not go hungry. Every season had its harvest, and every harvest had to be sold before it spoiled. So Mr. Fotis would load his cart with crates and set out before dawn for the open-air markets in the surrounding villages. Sometimes he took his eldest son, Nicola, who was 16 at the time, and sometimes his wife, Epphemia. The journey was slow. The horses moved only as fast as the dirt road allowed, and many times they did not return until deep into the night. Their village lay among low hills, and the last stretch of road passed beside a small stream and an old hill covered with wild pear trees. It was there, just before the first houses came into view, that the strange things began to happen. The first time, Mr. Fotis was returning home alone with Nicola. The moon was half full, and the sky was clear. There was enough light to make out the stones and the potholes in the road. Nicola was holding the reins when he suddenly looked over his shoulder. "Father, what is it?" "Someone is coming." Mr. Fotis turned and looked behind the cart. At first he thought it was a villager walking home, but then he realized something was wrong. The figure was not exactly walking. It seemed to glide along the road. It was small, about the size of a 10 or 12-year-old child, and around it was a faint bluish glow. It did not come closer. It did not fall behind. It kept exactly the same distance from the cart. Mr. Fotis lightly urged the horses forward. The cart accelerated. The figure matched its pace perfectly. When they reached the first houses of the village, Nicola looked back again. There was nothing there. "Did you see it?" he asked. Mr. Fotis did not answer immediately. "I saw it." They said nothing else. They convinced themselves it was exhaustion, that their minds had deceived them. A week later, Mr. Fotis went to the market in the neighboring village with Epphemia. It had been a hard day. They sold apples and a few grapes. They were returning late. When they reached the same place by the stream, Epphemia suddenly gripped her husband's arm. "Fotis, I see it. The same figure, the same light, the same childlike height." Epphemia turned pale. "Go faster." Mr. Fotis struck the horses. The cart jolted. The figure continued to follow them. Then a strong wind began to blow, and within the wind, they heard a single word. "Why?" Epphemia turned sharply. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" It said something. Mr. Fotis did not answer. He had heard it too. "Why?" When they reached the courtyard of their home, the figure vanished. As though it had never existed from that night on, the phenomenon returned. Not every time, but often enough. Sometimes the figure looked like a luminous shadow. Sometimes it appeared clearly as a child. Sometimes they saw nothing at all, only heard the wind whispering. Why? The villagers began to hear about it. Some said it was a spirit of the air. Others said it was the soul of an unbaptized child. Still others claimed that a child had once drowned in the stream. The village priest offered prayers. Nothing changed.
Mr. Fotis began to avoid returning after dark. But it was not always possible. Poverty could not wait. Months passed. One night, just before they entered the village, the figure came closer than ever before. Nicholas saw it clearly. It was a blonde child wearing a white shirt, barefoot. There was no anger on its face, only sorrow. And then, for the first time, the voice was heard clearly, not within the wind, but directly before them. Mother, why? Euphemia cried out. The horses bolted. The cart came to a violent stop. The figure remained still, and then disappeared into the mist. That night, Euphemia did not enter the house. She sat in the courtyard until dawn. She spoke to no one. In the morning, Mr. Fotis found her holding a small child's cap in her hands. A cap that had belonged to none of their 5 children. Euphemia. She raised her eyes. They were filled with tears. There were not 5. Mr. Fotis froze. What are you saying? There were 6. The silence that followed was heavier than any whisper. Before Nicola was born, I gave birth to a little boy. He was born far too early. He was never baptized. He died before dawn. Mr. Fotis stared at her without breathing. My father. She continued, said no one should ever know. He buried him himself near the stream, the place we pass every time. Mr. Fotis felt the strength leave his legs. Why didn't you tell me? I was ashamed. I believed that if I never spoke of him, he would fade away. But he never did. He was waiting for me. All these years. The village priest listened to the story. He asked them to show him the place. One Sunday after the liturgy, they all went together to the stream. They dug where Euphemia pointed, and they found a small wooden cross almost destroyed by time. Beside it were the tiny bones of a child. The priest chanted a memorial service. He blessed the place with holy water, and he asked that the remains be moved to the village cemetery. Euphemia stood beside the little grave. She placed the cap upon the earth and whispered, "Forgive me." From that day on, the light never appeared again. Neither did the whisper, nor the word why.
Only the very old people of the village used to say that on certain nights, when the wind blew from the stream, a gentle child's melody could be heard. Not sorrowful, peaceful, as if the child had finally found the road home. And Mr. Fotis, until the deepest years of his old age, every time he passed that place would lower his head. Not out of fear, out of respect. For the child who had walked through the night for so many years, not to seek revenge, but to ask a single question that had never been answered.